Hello. Today, you will hear a story with an interesting plot. When the heart is torn to pieces, it cannot be healed or stitched, it bleeds scarlet tears. Sergei got ready in a hurry, called a cab and wanted to leave as soon as possible while she slept. He nearly fell over on his crutches, staggered and grabbed a chair, which held him back from falling. Now Sergei knew for sure there was no more love in this house. The children had grown up scattered on their roads of life. Larissa was everything to him. He loved her to the point of self-forgetfulness. They lived a happy life. They raised a son and a daughter who had their own families and children. Now they are left alone. What do you need? Live until God calls you? After the accident, Sergei did not walk by himself, and he has been on crutches for over 7 years. The treatment did not help. There was constant pain. In his knees. He tried not to let Larissa hear him moan. Once it was so that he bit his hand because of pain, once in a fit of anger, he hit his legs with a crutch. Without feeling pain. But he does not give up. He used to be a test pilot, but now he is simply an invalid. Sergei tried. At least something to please Larissa, ordered flowers to the house, cooked sitting in a wheelchair until she came home from work. He succeeded in this with the help of the internet. He learned many dishes and even pastries. He often delighted Larissa with desserts. Washed a laundry with the washing machine and hung it up as best he could. Larissa laughed afterwards, corrected it. He cleaned the rooms, tried not to be a burden. And she appreciated it. She hugged me, you're my master. She kissed him. When he came home from work, he waited for her at the door and felt like a dog tied to his mistress. How does an invalid live? Only an invalid knows. Sometimes Sergei looked back at photos where he was healthy. He found a job over the internet so he would not be a burden in the house. They lived happily together, but as they say, not all of life is honey. For a long time, no one from Friends visited. It was a shame, and how many of them were there when he was healthy? What can you do? Such is the reality of life. Today, a former coworker came. Quite unexpectedly, Gennady. Sergei was very happy, grateful. A visitor for his long years of living in a wheelchair. Gennady came with a cake, a bottle of cognac and flowers for Larissa. Larissa set the table just as it was the day off. Larissa and Gennady sat on the couch and Sergei moved from his wheelchair to a chair. They began toasting, talking, reminiscing about their coworkers. Sergei was again transported into the working life of the airfield. He could not live without the sky, sitting on the balcony looking up at the sky. Maybe an airplane will fly by. Sergei watched the plane for a long time and tears welled up in his eyes. Gennady told many funny stories about fishing and hunting. Lara laughed and Sergei was pleased that she was having fun. Taking the crutches, Sergei excused himself to the bathroom. On his way back, hesitated in the corridor and overheard a conversation. Gennady was holding Larissa's hand and said, "Sweetheart. I'll call you. You must be tired of life with an invalid. Don't tell Gennady. Of course, life with him is not sugar. Sometimes I just hate him, but I endure." Hearing their conversation, Sergei stunned with surprise. Suddenly, Gennady, embracing, kissed Larissa on the lip she did not resist. In Sergei's soul, everything froze, turned over. Larissa no longer loves me. And maybe never loved. He was ready to fall under the ground from worry. His palm was sweating, and one crutch fell out of his hands and rattled against the floor. Sergei leaned against the wall to avoid falling. Larissa picked herself up and went into the corridor. She pretended to care, picked up the crutch, led him to the table. Pretending that nothing happened. Within an hour again, Adi was gone, destroying their quiet life to the ground. Sergei packed a few things for the first time, put the documents, photos of children, and joined with his wife where they were happy in their younger years. He put a few of his work pictures during the testing of the planes. I went into the room, put the note on the perfume table, and she was sleeping peacefully. Her beautiful curls spread on the pillow. Larissa was 7 years younger, but she looked about 45. He went out, closing the door quietly while leaving the keys by the entrance on the nightstand. He asked the cab driver to take the suitcase at the door and he complied. "Where are we going?" he asked, helping Sergei to walk up the steps. "A nursing home." The driver looked at the not yet elderly man with amazed eyes. Life must have gotten to him, he thought as he got his passenger into the car. Sergei drove thinking, looking out the window, mentally running through their whole life. Acquaintance, meetings, maternity hospital. And he is a happy father. Did she lie? Did she live without love? His heart groaned with pain, humiliation. Her words did not leave his mind. I will not hold her back. Let her live her own life. His thoughts flashed in his head. 3 hours later, he was already at the gate of the house for people with disabilities. The driver drove past the guards and took him under the porch. He got out of the car. His legs were a little stiff. A nurse with a wheelchair was already waiting by the car together with a nurse. I will write my obituary later, he said with a kind of chuckle. I'm Eva, the nurse. What do you say? Our residents live long. The rooms are equipped for 1, 2, and 3 people. Nikolai was an old friend of Sergei's mother and his son ran the orphanage. One phone call was enough. Here he is a test pilot, and this home for lonely souls is kind of incompatible, but that's life. The nurse carried the suitcase, the nurse skillfully wielded the stroller, drove up to the door on the first floor, opened the door with the key. This is Sergei, your apartment, get settled, your key. Do you need help unpacking your things? I'll send an orderly. No thanks. I'll do it myself. Sergei, do you prefer to eat in your room or in the canteen? In the canteen? You should get used to God's abode. All right. At 9, breakfast, I'll take you to the canteen in 30 minutes. Then we'll do the decorations. Eva and an orderly put the suitcase out. Sergei looked around. The room, despite the first floor, had a balcony with an exit to the street right into the garden. A wooden bed, bedside table, TV, small refrigerator, closet, coffee table. 2 armchairs. Bathroom. And restroom together, all clean and neat. Sergei took out his laptop, put it on the table, laid out his things. The room seemed cozy to him. A nurse came in. Well, Sergei, how is the mood for breakfast? The mood is great. Can I drive the wheelchair myself, and do I have crutches? Please, I'll be your guide for a while. I am a nurse by training, but here, more like a teacher. So am I in kindergarten? Eva smiled, and although she was about 50 years old, she was a very good conversationalist. There were a lot of people in the dining room. He made his way to the indicated table. For breakfast, there was milk soup, cheesecakes with sour cream tea. Sergei ate an apple and went to the post to register. He never wondered how people lived in this type of house. Sergei could have rented an apartment and a nurse, but for some reason, he didn't. Lara woke up needing to get ready for work, stretched, got up. Went to the bathroom, made coffee. She went to her husband's bedroom. She did not find him there, walked through the rooms. He was nowhere to be found. No crutches, no him. Found a note on the dressing table. Larissa, we lived a long life together. You gave me 2 wonderful children. I am grateful for that. I don't want to burden you with a life with an unloved man. You will find a couple yet. Don't look for me. Sergei. Larissa reread the message again, did not know to rejoice or to cry what she would tell her children. How to live without him. She suddenly realized he probably heard the conversation with Gennady. But where could he go? No relatives, friends, forgotten who needs him as an invalid. She thought, going to work, ungrateful. I took care of him. I was not in the mood at work. She told her friend Katerina, who held with delight. Hooray, now you're completely free. Where we want to go there. My soul was scratching. She called everyone, including the children. Just asked how was doing. She spent the night in confusion, could not sleep thinking about life all the time, remembering Sergei. The devil drew me to answer Gennady's flirting. When I remembered him, I called him and he answered at once. Hi, honey. How are you? You cannot imagine how sad I am. Sergei is somewhere gone. He will clear his head. Do not worry. Tomorrow is my day off. I'll visit you. Sergei stayed up all night and only fell asleep in the morning. I guess everyone has a changed life. Sergei has been living in the shelter for a month now, trying not to remember Larissa. Those memories are painful. He is slowly getting used to the house where he now dwells. He got to know many people forgotten by the family and society. Each had his own fate, his own cross. Some had been turned in by their children. Others had lost their apartments themselves. There are also several young people with disabilities. Their parents died and social services placed them in the monastery. Although Sergei felt that they did not belong among the elderly. Larissa thought that in the person of Gennady her life would start bubbling up with a new key, but after a month of family life began a disagreement. Their candy bouquet period ended before it had even begun. Gennady would come home drunk, rude, and displeased with everything. One day he shouted at her, "Even the invalid ran away from you." He pushed her so that she fell on the couch, hitting her head on the handle of the couch. "Bastard, you are not worth his little finger." She said to Gennady, "Get out of my house." Gennady left, slamming the door loudly. She collapsed on her bed sobbing. Eva reread Sergei's medical history and wondered how such a man could end up in a home for lonely hearts. Erudite, cheerful, intelligent, former test pilot. Handsome. How could such a man have number one? Month after month, the days go by fast. Here comes the winter. The streets are carpeted with white. It's snowing. Christmas is coming. In a house of lonely hearts, preparations for the holiday are in full swing. Sergei is given a guitar and he will play a romance. In the evenings, he sits rehearsing and the residents of the house enjoy listening. Son and daughter are always busy, their own problems, calling Larissa asking how things are and do not come. Larissa does not even say that her father is away, and she does not even know where he lives. Outside, everyone is bustling about getting ready for the new year, and she is alone in an empty apartment. Sergei's guitar hangs on the wall and she picked it up and struck the strings and cried. Lara sat and called her friends, wishing them a happy new year. Among all those to whom she called there was the number of Nicholas, a friend of his mother. She dialed his number and suddenly heard his words, "Hello, Larissa. How can you not be ashamed when you have a living wife and give her husband to a nursing home?" What? She was gasping for air, holding her heart. When she heard nothing else, she heard a dial tone. "So he's in a nursing home?" She repeated and began to look in the phone book for the number of the facility. She called to confirm that they have such a person. "I'll go and get him," she thought. Having bought all sorts of goodies, Larissa called a cab and went to the Shell, driving down the snow-covered streets. She thought if only he would forgive her. Coming out at the gate of the needed house, she opened the door. The building was cozy. There were balloons and snowflake congratulatory posters, and when she opened the door to the hall with the music blasting from it, she saw Sergei on stage playing the guitar. He was playing her favorite romance and singing. She stood, stunned. But most of all, she was struck when he stopped singing. A smiling woman came up to him. She handed him a bouquet of chrysanthemums. He gallantly kissed her hand. They looked at each other with eyes that even a blind man could see. They had a sympathy, if not more. Lara asked an orderly to take the bag to Sergei, who complied with the request. Coming up to Sergei, He said there is a lady in the corridor who asked me to give you this. He said, handing over the bag. Who? With surprise, he asked. The wife said. Sergei immediately yanked his hand away. Take it. I don't have a wife. She died long ago. It's a mistake. The orderly shrugged his shoulders and took the bag back. Lara took the bag and ran out of the building. She was stumbling, crying without seeing the way. He, the man who had once loved her dearly, was looking out of the window. The music continued to play in the hall. Eva, let's run away from here, he suggested to Eva. And let's go to the Christmas tree in the yard. I have firecrackers, Ether suddenly suggested. She got dressed and wheeled him in a wheelchair under the Christmas tree. It was snowing fluffily. They were shooting clappers and shouting like children, "Hooray, Happy New Year." When their eyes met, taking Eva's hand, he said, "If I were healthy, I would offer you my hand and heart. And I will not refuse." Either lowered her eyes and said. On January 1st, to the applause of the tenants of the house, lonely hearts left the shelter. Eva and Sergei drove to Eva's house with a new leaf. Their family life began.